I want to bring up the topic, and this comes up all the time in the homeschool world, is about socialization. And I want to talk about also in the context of students, the kind of students that you're working with who are lacking in self-control, motor control. And I know a lot of homeschoolers, there's kind of this stigma that we are protecting our children from society, and that they're that in that sense that they're not going to develop assertion or empathy or self-control because they're not having to function in society. And one thing that I have learned, and I come from a public school background, when I pulled away from that world, is I learned a lot that there's a lot of age appropriate. There's social things that are age appropriate, but also grade level. And and now I call them social constructs, because when I hear people say things, well, you're not acting like a fifth grader, or you're not acting like this, and it's like, maybe they are, maybe that is how,
Right.
They, as a fifth grader, they are behaving in this way. And so sometimes those comments can come off as very insulting, especially to children, who are so fragile. They're, developing their identity and all of these things. So how do you advise your students and their parents and people working with children like this, who are dealing with these factors that we don't even understand, and kind of releasing these kids out into the world? And like I said, as they're developing these skills that you're working with them on, how do you help them in dealing with socialization and coming from this kind of a background?
Well, I don't really address that specifically per se, but I think what I do see happen is that kids who are frustrated because they're failing or they're not doing what mom wants or teacher wants, they often feel like they're not understood. And I think, I'm a mom too, so I know the whole thing of, you want your kids to do what you want them to do. But when I'm working with the clients that I see, I look at it as from the perspective of what's hard. Why is this hard for you to do? What do you think you're good at, and what do you think you struggle with? And then it's just so important, I think, as moms to bring up, what, I have a hard time with these things, but I'm good at these things. I mean, there's not a person in the world who has everything together. I have the worst sense of direction that you could even imagine, but I have other strengths that are beneficial. One of the things that I feel is very important for moms to understand is, even though a task might be easy to you, that you've gone over numerous times with your child, that you think this is so simple, there are so many components to everything that goes on. Your eye skills, your attention, your focus, your motor skills, your awareness of processing the information, what you hear, what you see, what you're supposed to initiate. There are so many things that go into each activity that is supposedly, easy, that we've gone over with our kids a bunch of times. So I think as a mom, if a child isn't easily going through something, or just over and over again, there's this block and there's this resistance. There's very easily the reason for that is because there's something that's not flowing smoothly, something that's just not clicking in their brain as to what they're supposed to do. And that, I think, is important for us to understand as parents. I shared with Rebecca that I, did very well in school, except I was terrible at math. And I had a sister who tried to teach me math, who loved math. And, basically I felt so dumb because I couldn't understand what she was like. We've gone over this. This is so easy. And so I think we have to be careful not to do that. And then when our kids might feel that from us at home, and then they feel that from other kids in other environments, that's tricky. So pointing out that we all have struggles is very important. And then the one other example I think is sometimes, if if I gave you as a parent a test to take, and you had one hand behind your back and you had a patch over one eye and there was blaring music in the background auditorily, just really distracting you, and said, okay, now focus and take this test. Just a little glimpse of what that might be like for a kid who is not integrating all the information appropriately, and is expected to focus, then recall information and write it neatly, and all the things that we're supposed to do. So we have very complex systems that do so much, and often there are bumps there that make things more difficult. So I think for the character of the child, you always want them to feel like, okay, we're going to get this. We're going to keep working, mm-hmm. and I'm going to try to help you figure out the best way to be successful at this, because I think kids really do want to be successful.
Yeah.
And they're very frustrated when they can't.
Right, and when they know other people around them are getting frustrated
yes.
with them. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, I can't homeschool because my child is difficult, or my child has this or that. And I kind of always come back to, I know for myself as a parent how much I have had to grow mm-hmm. as a person, in my patience and my understanding, my empathy, speaking mm-hmm. of social skills, empathy. I've had to grow in that, in working and finding the strategies and just, and tweaking. And, that's never a recipe, I think. It's just always, kind of going day by day, finding what works, and finding faith, yes. and that this will work, and that this is, for a greater purpose. So thank you. Those are some great